chance at trying their luck. The Powerball jackpot has risen to an estimated $1.3 billion after the winning numbers failed to appear last night. More information at apnews.com. AP correspondent Ben Thomas reports a decline in travel to the U.S. may linger, according to experts.
A pronounced drop in foreign visitors to the U.S. has stretched well into the summer. Figures from the National Travel and Tourism Office show more than 3 million fewer international arrivals in the first 7 months of the year. That downward trend emerged as President Trump returned to the White House. Tourism experts say factors including Trump's tariffs, strict immigration policies, and his rhetoric have made foreign visitors feel unwelcome. Some say those prospective tourists are sensing an outright hostility in America toward foreigners. And that preliminary data does not include travelers from Canada, where many residents have said they plan to stay away from the U.S. in protest of Trump's aggressive trade stance and talk of making Canada the 51st state. I'm Ben Thomas.
And I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Vuchitsky. We'll see sunny skies here for today with a high around 80 degrees, winds out of the south around 5 to 10 miles per hour, and for tonight mostly clear with a low near 60. By Wednesday, a chance for showers and thunderstorms here late, increasing cloud cover, high of 77 degrees. Thursday, mostly sunny, high of 66. Friday, a slight chance for rain, high of 66. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 61.
Lowe's has the Labor Day deals you need to give your home a new look. Buy one, get one free select interior paint via Visa gift card rebate. Then, add the final touch with 2 for $8 on select 2.5 or 3-quart mums. Refresh your home and save big while doing it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 9/3. Mums offer in-store only. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. More terms and restrictions apply. See Lowe's.com/rebates for details.
Chicago's progressive talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Tuesday morning, progressives. Chins up, shoulders back. It's time to fight. Shout out to everybody that's been out there sending me text messages and emails and all that good stuff. Welcome to the September 2nd, 2025 edition of Choose Views. 773-763-9278. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube, along with emailing me at richard@WCPT820.com. Follow me on X, Instagram, Threads, and Substack, as well as Facebook and LinkedIn and Blue Sky. Yeah, there we go. Those are the places that we hang out when we're not hanging out here. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And there you can get Choose Views, featured interviews, and the shortened versions and the long versions of what we do here. You can also plug into Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. And make your way over to heartlandsignal.com, as we always say. Lots of great things there. Our Heartland Signal on X and our posts and articles put together by our great staff that spends so much time kind of ferreting out what's going on in the Heartland, you know, the Midwest, if you will, or this part of the Midwest. Good piece there and clip there from U.S. Representative Ilhan Omar talking about the shootings that took place. It's unfortunate. It's been twice shootings in Minnesota in recent months. But once again, make your way over there. There's a good clip that we have there of her. And then from Iowa State Senate-elect Caitlin Dry talking on CNN about flipping a district that Trump won by a plus 11 to blue, which is great signs of us making strides and not waiting for the midterms to come for us to start wins. So kudos to her work there. So make your way over to Heartland Signal on X. Great stuff there, as always, that you can then pass on to folks that are in your world. Great weekend, and we'll talk about that when we come back after this first break. Today's guest will include author Seth Radwell, talking about one of his latest articles, and certainly some commentary about a book that he's written called American Schism, which I find interesting. And we'll talk about that and some of his observations. And then a political strategist, Mike Nellis, will be with us as well in the 7:30 hour. Seth will be with us. Seth Radwell will be with us in the 7 o'clock hour, and Mike Nellis will be with us in the 7:30 hour. So we're looking forward to talking to both of those gentlemen this morning. But right now, check this out, progressives.
U.S. farmers are taking a big hit in Trump's tariff war, thanks to soaring fertilizer prices eating away their profits. U.S. shoppers are also facing a wave of order cancellations as the countries around the world are canceling American-bound shipments. Do you know why? Tariffs. These are just a few of the many warning signs that the economic road ahead could be bumpy. But still, the stock market continues to soar, with the S&P topping 6,500 for the first time ever. Why? Because today, markets care about the earnings of just 7 mega companies, all of which are mostly immune to the tariffs and immigration. The Dow and the NASDAQ only give us the illusion of prosperity, but they are not metrics for the health of the overall economy or even corporate America. What they are metrics for the well-being of tech giants and the top 10%. What you're watching now is the mega rich getting mega richer, which brings me to my big question tonight. Should we stop paying attention to the markets, or at least stop believing that the markets are the economy?
They're not. I've said this before. I've said this on the family meeting. Eric Gritton and I have talked about this before. They're not. And both, Democrats and Republicans have somewhat used the markets as an indicator or a lead point for talking points about how well the country is doing. And it isn't always an indicator of what's happening in the economy. And that's where I think sometimes that message can get skewed a little bit. However, right now, what is critically important to understand is the T word. And I'm not talking about Trump, but tariffs. We've gotten past that August deadline, the 90, then another 90 day conversation. We've moved past that. And to a great extent, a lot of people are wondering where we really are. We've got in the 6:30 hour, we're going to talk a little bit, not going to really talk economics, but we're going to talk about some economic factors and some things that some people missed and some things that are actually happening with some voices from some economists and from other folks that have presented, what's really happening on the ground. And I think that is what really matters right now in this space of tariffs, is what's really happening on the ground. One of the thoughts during the campaign last year, one of the conversation points, talking points, all the rest, was that this economy wasn't working for everybody. Well, I would, at risk of saying, no economies always work for everybody at the same time. But the disparity right now that's going to happen because of the tariffs is at the feet of Donald Trump and his regime, period. Full stop. It is not anything that can be blamed on any Democratic administration from the past. It's at the feet of Donald Trump, his regime, and the entire GOP, because they promised America that this was going to be fixed on day one. All right, I'll give them week one. Nope. Month one. Nope. 100 days one. Nope. It's not fixed. All those things that they said were going to change in a blink of an eye if you just get me back in the White House so I alone can fix everything. So I am going to say this, And like I said, in the 6:30 hour, we're going to have some clips to talk about this a little bit more. You were more than warned. You were informed, and you were given cogent reminders of what would happen. We've laundry listed them. We will do that again, and probably again, because of where we are. So I want to just share a couple of thoughts. And it gets into a couple things that I just have to lean into. MAGA, just admit you were wrong. So one of the hardest things for any of us to do is to admit that we were wrong, that we made a mistake. And if we even give MAGA, and we give those who follow MAGA, we give the GOP, we give whatever, the moderate Republicans that voted for this administration that we now have, you were wrong. If your mindset was he's going to fix the economy and the markets, you were wrong. The markets have chugged along, actually without much major harm. But the economy for everyday people, those kitchen table items that we like to use or a phrase we like to use to describe it, those things have gotten worse for a lot of people. We have a couple clips that we'll talk about that. But the point is, MAGA, you got it wrong. Admit that you got it wrong. You're being harmed by this too. And to say that, to use the phrase that I've heard kicked around, they voted for what they voted for, as long as it's not going to hurt. If it's going to hurt them but hurt others more, that's a fool's game. So admit you were wrong. The GOP and non-voters admit you were wrong, and then make a change. Now, MAGA, I'm not expecting you to change. But those who call themselves, those who call themselves the rational Republicans, the rational GOP, you should have enough sense to know that you made a mistake and admit that you were wrong about it. And then change your behavior if you truly believe in what you say you believe in. Or if not, then what you voted for was what you got, what you're getting, and what you're going to continue to receive. And it had nothing to do with the economy. It is my four legs of the stool. So just admit that. If you can't admit you were wrong, admit that it is about racism, sexism, white Christian nationalism, and privilege. Just admit it. And the reason I'm going in this just admit it moment is, progressives, the country is not teetering because Democrats don't have solutions. It's not. That's not the reason. It's because of, and I think we have this clip that we might be able to get to, what Governor Walz says, that thing in the White House, and bad policy. That's the reason why. It's plain and simple. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of why you admit admit you were wrong, admit you got it wrong, admit you made a mistake, and not this mealy mouth, tiptoeing around it. Two quick examples, and they both tap into the U.S. Open tennis tournament. This one tennis player, Ostapenko, I can't think of her first name. Stop hating. You got beat. Now, in your match against Taylor Townsend, you got beat. I happen to be hanging with a friend of mine this weekend who's a long, long time tennis guy. I mean, he's been playing tennis for a long time. And he helped me understand what really happened. Ostapenko, you got beat. Just admit you got beat and shut up. And then don't come back with a weak apology. Well, no, either shut up or full-throated apology. This weak apology garbage has got to go. MAGA, either admit you were wrong, full throat, or just shut the hell up. No whining now. The guy that's the CEO of the paving company that snatched the hat from the little boy at the U.S. Open, the CEO's name is, I think it's Piotr Skerzarek, something like that, Skerzarek. Just admit. Don't say you thought that the player was giving it to you. He came up with this weak A explanation or a half-baked apology. Just say, I lost my mind for a moment. I got greedy. Because it's a representation in my mind of what MAGA does and what this whole conversation around the greed of the rich do. They make these excuses. The privilege makes these excuses for their behavior rather than owning them and taking responsibility for them. And that's what MAGA and the GOP is doing. They're making excuses, and they're coming with these soft, weak mealy-mouthed apologies rather than taking ownership. If you're going to be a bad actor, just say you're a bad actor rather than running around pretending like, bless you, pretending like you're this good person, but in actuality, you're doing things that are designed to harm people. So take ownership, MAGA, or just shut the hell up. Admit you were wrong or shut up. Go away. And there you go. You're listening. Yeah, I'm back to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
WCPT Replay.
Right now, we're going to catch up on all things Wisconsin with our friend Ben Cominos.
The big, beautiful bill is exactly what I expect Republicans to do. They're doing exactly what I expect every single time. The Democratic Party, I actually expect to have the working classes back, and I would hope that they start to run on messaging not only to get back to the status quo that was 2024, but to actually address the fact that, as I often state, if you are under the age of 40, I realize I'm a property owner, but by and large, the idea of owning a home, if you don't own one already, is becoming a pipe dream very quickly. The idea of starting a family is becoming a pipe dream very quickly. And so that's got to be the messaging. And Donald Trump, for all his bluster, hasn't done a damn thing to do something about it.
Keep listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Good morning. You're waking up with Richard Chu.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
We're live and ready to hear from you. Text or call us now at 773-763-9278. Same number. Simple as that. Let's get the conversation going on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, folks. Welcome back to the show. Yeah, so just admit it. You were wrong and stop whining. And that can be laid over a lot of things that we're seeing right now. Take responsibility for it, or shut the heck up, and get in. If you're going to fight, get in the fight to make things better, rather than, as we talk about so often, taking things away from people. It just makes absolutely zero sense. And then to whine about it, no love here. All right, talking about taking things away, well, I'm going to give you a few things, and then we'll talk about something that's happening at an alarming rate. But a couple of Choose Views news items on this September 2nd, 2025. Black job losses are happening at an alarming rate. Unemployment remains low at 4.2%, suggesting economic resilience. However, some of the worrisome indicators hint at an underlying weakness. And one of the most glaring is the jobless rates among black workers. Often the first warning sign before a broader downturn is black employment, which has soared to 7.2%, with women particularly being hit hard. That's because they comprise 12% of the federal workforce, which has been decimated by cuts. It's a canary in the coal mine for what may be coming, from one expert at the Wall Street Journal. See, I told you guys this. Pay attention. EV sales surge as tax credits end. Kind of a alternate way of looking at it, which I'll explain. After September 30th, American drivers will no longer be able to take advantage of the $7,500 federal tax credit for electrical vehicle purchases. So many are scrambling to sign papers now. In Colorado, where EVs are especially popular, dealers are offering leases as low as $39 a month to offload inventory, because nobody quite knows what the industry will look like once tax credits end. Quote, it's the end of an era in the U.S. auto industry, according to the Wall Street Journal. Now, sometimes some states will subsidize that with a state version of it, which is, I think it's $2,000 in rebates like New York has. And if you're buying a used EV up until September 30th, the federal credit is $4,000, $7,500 on a new vehicle. But the problem is that the surge is really not. It's not real. It's not sustainable. It's not. They'll take advantage of it, of course, The dealers will, but it's not sustainable because once it goes away, then what's going to happen to that inventory? And that's what they were talking about. So we'll see. We'll have to pay attention to that, and we'll keep you posted. Game, set, match. Inflation. If you want to see inflation in action, taking a match at the U.S. Open. The tournament officials have said that their official cocktail, the Honey Deuce, now costs $23. That's more than 53% more than it was in 2015, 10 years ago. But still, fans are buying it. The U.S. Open sold more than 550,000 Honey Deuces last year. Over the same 10-year period, overall inflation rose about 36%. If Honey Deuce pricing had stayed in line with that, the increase would cost just a little more than $20 today. So there's a real on-the-ground impact of inflation. Wall Street is bracing for now that we're in September, and despite a robust summer rally, some market movers are skeptical that the, quote, eerie calm may signal choppy waters ahead. September has been historically one of the weakest periods in the stock market, with the S&P declining on average 0.07% over the last 30 years. Now, the upcoming 14 trading sessions will be critically important as the market responds to a crucial stretch of data and decisions, including new jobs reports and the Federal Reserve's verdict on interest rate cuts. So pay attention there. The court is deciding, meaning the Federal Court of Appeals has declared that most U.S. tariffs are illegal, but in some key areas beyond the scope of their ability to rule. Sector-specific levies on steel and aluminum will stay because they are unrelated to the emergency powers used in April to set reciprocal tariffs on over 60 trade partners. Duties previously imposed on China are unlikely to change. The issue will eventually be decided, most likely by the Supreme Court, which must reconcile the major questions doctrine. It is cited to blunt past cases of executive overreach. Last but not least, Aldi plans an aggressive U.S. growth. With the job market stagnant and Americans watching their wallets, Aldi sees an opening. The German grocery chain plans to open more than 2,000 U.S. stores this year as it woos budget-conscious consumers seeking organic, high-quality foods. Aldi's frugal model, quote, meets a moment that has made winners of discount retailers like Dollar General and TJ Maxx. Aldi cuts costs by displaying items in crates, occupying a smaller footprint, and selling 90% private label products. With over 2,500 U.S. stores, it considers itself the nation's third largest grocer. So pay attention to what's happening at Aldi's. There you go, guys. A couple of Choose Views news items on this September 2nd, 2025. What Stephanie Rule was saying earlier about how farmers are one of the frontline parts of our economy that say that just because the financial markets are performing in a way that seems to be consistent, not necessarily robust right now, but consistent, that it's not always a best indicator for what's really happening on the ground. And she makes a very good point there. And we'll bring you a couple other points in that item when we get into the 6:30 hour. But I want to come back to two things, one of which I talked about last week and one that I introduced this morning. The one from last week, if you guys remember, I talked about Americans, it's time to take care and to be careful with your health. And I want to remind you of this. I actually had two conversations this weekend with folks about this piece. And it goes back to what RFK was leaning into at the end of last week, RFK Jr., I should say. And I clearly, unfiltered and without apology, referred to him as being a little off the reservation when it comes to this conversation around medical care and treatment for Americans. I believe he is. That's my observation of him. I think in this space, he's a little off the reservation, and it's not leadership, it's reactionary, but it is part of what Project 2025 wants to see. So he's a little bit off the reservation, in my opinion. Stephen Miller wants population reduction, as I said. Peter Thiel wants data control. Musk wants to send, keep sending rockets into another atmosphere. And the CDC is essentially being gutted. I had a very good conversation with a longtime friend of mine, who I hung out with this weekend. And, you know, one of the things that he said to me is, Richard, I am making sure I'm getting in to see, and he turned 70 this year. So that was part of the reason I went to see him. He said, I'm being very conscious and aware, and he hadn't listened to Friday's show, but he said that I'm making sure all my medical treatments and whatnot are being taken care of. I'm making sure and he's a former Marine, and he said I'm getting my appointments lined up at the VA to make sure I can get in and get things taken care of, and any medical things that I know about or anything that's not discovered, I want to make sure I'm on top of that. And the reason that that's important, he didn't hear me say this last week on Friday's show, but I did say that, you know, we all should be taking care right now. And I wasn't saying this to be hyperbolic or saying this to be in any way sort of, you know, the sky is falling. But I think it's important that every one of us take the time and get in and see our doctors. If there is another outbreak of any major medical situation, particularly COVID, I am concerned that the federal government will not be there in a manner that will be designed to support and help people. There are things that are, you know, there are just a couple of items that I've paid attention to that tell me that we should be taking care of ourselves in a little bit more aggressive way. So get in and see your doctor. Get your COVID test. Make sure that if you take medications, get your scripts filled, and be mindful of the environment that you're in and your surroundings. There's been an uptick in people that have had COVID. There's been an uptick in people who've had chest colds and other forms of respiratory concerns. So let's all be mindful of this. Let's all get out and make sure that we can, you know, we get to see our doctors. If you've got some ambulatory issues that you deal with that are supported with, you know, certain types of medication or certain types of medical devices, go see your doctor. Make sure that you're on point with that. Just please do that, because I don't want us to sit back now and then look back later and go, wow, I wish I had gotten that checked out, because now I can't get the medication for it, particularly if tariffs, someone must have a conversation about that, so we'll get that after the break, particularly if tariffs go in a crazy direction when it comes to medical supplies. Medical supplies, and I mean that broadly, medications as well as medical equipment, okay? So I'm not being gloom and doom. I'm just maybe being more of a reminder and to, you know, kind of, you know, tap you guys on the back of the neck and say, hey, you know, get in and see your doctor. Just want to use common sense based on what I believe that this regime is trying to do. So, okay, just I'll more than likely, you guys know how I roll. I'll probably remind you of that again in the days to come. And once Congress is back to doing what they're supposed to be doing, hopefully some of the Democratic voices will be speaking to this as well. All right. Let's take a quick break, guys. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Here's the tale of the daily Medfill. Same old pharmacy, same old bill, but those prices kept rising higher still.
Till the savings wrangler rode in, cool as can be. Tap Good RX, saving massively.
No plan? Don't matter none. Up to 80% off. The deals are done.
Discounts hitting harder than Ma's chili. Dang. That one little app does all the rest.
Save time and money on prescriptions.
Check Good RX. Good RX is not insurance.
Allstate's new home insurance is now better than ever. We're making getting the right home insurance that's right for you super easy with our improved online quoting tool. It explains how each coverage option works for you without the headache. Yep, you could start protecting your home in a matter of minutes. So check Allstate first for home insurance that's better than ever. You're in good hands with Allstate.
Savings vary. Coverage subject to terms, qualifications, and availability. Allstate North American Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Vuchitsky. We'll see sunny skies here for today with a high around 80 degrees, winds out of the south around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then for tonight, mostly clear with a low near 60. By Wednesday, a chance for showers and thunderstorms here late, increasing cloud cover, high of 77 degrees. Thursday, mostly sunny, high of 66. Friday, a slight chance for rain, high of 66. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 61.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Welcome back to Chew's Views with Richard Chew.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. 773-763-9278 is the number. Let's grab a quick call. Devin, let's go to Naomi in California. Good morning, Naomi. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning, Richard.
How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I'm good. I was out your way this weekend, so it was beautiful.
Did you have fun?
I had a wonderful time. Got to see it.
It was kind of humid this weekend. It's not normally humid here.
No,
but it was.
Yeah, but it was still nice to be there. So, what's going on this morning, Naomi? What's happening?
Well, I heard you talking about the tariffs, and I have a problem with that word. I think we need to call them taxes, which is what they are.
I agree. I won't challenge you on that. But tell us in your observation why you look at it that way.
The reason I would like all of us to use that term instead of the word tariff is because it's very easy to understand that the tariff thing is sort of like obtuse.
Yeah.
We know what a tariff. And the reason that I say this is because we're already paying for the billionaires' tax breaks, and now we're getting double saddled with more taxes, which is the tariff.
Well, and you know what else too? I guess this just hit me, and you may have already thought about it this way, but I'll take the baton from you on this one and run with it. It's actually a great and a lot easier messaging for Democratic both those who are currently in office and those that are running to say this is a new tax on America.
Exactly.
It just
so
hit me.
Cleaner.
It's so much cleaner. You're absolutely right. I'm going to work with that because you're making an excellent point. One of the things that I've been assembling, Naomi, and this will go into my playbook, is simplifying the Democratic message now, not in 2 years, but right now, so that Democrats have a better have a cleaner way of communicating with voters and consumers. And a tax rather than tariffs is much easier for people to get their head around, because everybody says, I hate the taxes, I hate taxes, I hate taxes. Okay, well, Trump just raised your taxes.
Yeah, and it was raised without representation.
That's right.
Presidents are not supposed to tax. It's Congress that is supposed to tax.
Yep.
Levy taxes. Congress. Only Congress.
And indirectly, the GOP has levied this, but I get your point. You're talking about the process of raising it.
Well, they're not. They need to be punished because they're not doing their job.
That's right.
So we know that already. They're abdicating their jobs.
Yeah.
That's it.
This is clean. I like it. I like it, Naomi. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Do you have a minute? Do you have another minute?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you can talk about need, yeah. But I have an issue. I'm really upset because this guy, this moron in the White House, is making me crazy. But Wes Moore, I love Wes Moore. I love Pritzker. Wes Moore was really mad, and I love Wes Moore. He's so classy. Did you hear him?
I saw clips of it. I didn't see the entire, but I know what you're talking about.
He was mad. Now, the reason it concerns me is because he's a military guy.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to have to become militant.
Well, guys, how do I want to? First, I'll say thank you for reminding us of the importance of getting angry in a controlled way, frustrated, speaking out. Let's keep that as much as we can on the strong side rather than on the weak side. What do I mean by that? We can get angry about things, and we should get angry. Right now, here's the thing. This is what Governor Moore's emotion means to me. You can be angry and we should be angry. Why would you not be angry about what's happening right now? They want us, conversely, Naomi, and this is why I had to pause and think how I was going to say this. They want us, the GOP, the entire GOP, the whole regime, MAGA light, MAGA heavy, MAGA in the middle, all want us to basically kind of, slow walk our brains into not dealing with any of this and not talking about any of this. They want us to acquiesce. They want us to give up. They actually don't want us to be angry about this. They want us to be sad and disappointed, because it's easier to manipulate someone when they become sad and disappointed and disenfranchised. And Governor Wes Moore is not that guy.
No, he's definitely not. Yes, I agree. I think that he has met his match with Wes Moore. Honestly, he was really maltreated by him, and he put up with it. That's the thing. He's a Rhodes Scholar. He's brilliant. I love him. And you know who else I love? Brendan Scott. When that shit, I was so impressed with him too. Oh, I just love these two.
Yeah, well, and what is it about them? This is obvious, Naomi, so I'm just messing with you. But what is it about them and a few other leaders, like the mayor of Boston, the mayor of Chicago, and the list goes on? I love Karen Bass too. I love her. You got me on that one. But the thing that they bring to the table is they truly are educated. They truly are smart. They truly are ones with common sense, and they're not to be
so brilliant.
And they're not to be messed with. And he can't handle that. So what will start to happen is from the Oval Office and from Truth Social and from all the other, he'll start to attack them and make nasty comments about them and all the things that he normally does, because he doesn't actually have the ability to go toe to toe with those people. And because they come prepared, they're ready, they know what they're talking about, and they hate it when someone tries to pretend that they're stupid. And so part of what you saw from Governor Moore was that guy. And Trump is now threatening to withhold money on the bridge for the repair of the bridge. Yeah. Oh my God! The SOB lied. He lied about it. The money was. They haven't even reimbursed us for the California fires from January. The money that Biden had approved. You're right. I know. And once again, it's the GOP getting away with this BS. And like I said earlier in the show, you all made a bad decision. You know it. Some of you were hoodwinked. Some of you wanted it. And now you got it. But we on the other side, on this side, we do have to be a little bit partisan here. We've got to wave our flag, not in a surrendering way. We've got to wave and raise our flag of pride and our putting them on notice that we are not going to take this lightly. We have to fight. There's something else. Yeah. There's something else another word that I want us to inject into everything all the time. If you agree with me, I hope it's the word illegal. All of these executive orders are illegal. Well, and we need to throw it back in their faces. They are illegal. Yeah, I mean, some of them are not illegal. I won't say that. Some of them are. They're essentially illegal. They have to be litigated. Well, some of them are in the purview of the presidency, and so we don't, just because we don't like something that he's doing doesn't mean that. But we know, for instance, that he doesn't have control of the elections. But that's so not. We know that's illegal. Well, okay. I mean, all right. For the ones that he's thinking about doing, okay. Some of them that he has done do fit in the. They are just plain old illegal. Well, aren't they? Well, this is why I'm saying it the way I'm saying. So listen to me. Some of the ones that he has put in place, he's allowed to do. Now, they're unfair, they're unkind, they constitutionally, some could challenge it and say that part of it is illegal, but I don't get caught up so much in that. I know where you're headed with this with regard to the elections. Those would be crossing the line. There's no question they're illegal, because the federal government does not weigh in and determine what happens in state-run elections. So that part there, he would be crossing the line. And to some extent, people are saying that when it comes to the use of the National Guard, that's right up against the line. So I'm not disagreeing with you. It is because he's not funding the police, and that he's sending the cops in, his cops. Right. So I'm not saying you're wrong, Naomi. I'm just saying unless I know for a fact that everything is a broad brush moment. That's why I don't say everything is illegal. A lot of it is being tested in court right now, and that's why the courts are holding. But on this election thing and voting, mail-in balloting, that's not in his purview. If he crosses that line, then there'll be some problems legally, and we have to stay focused and pay attention to that. But I like what you said. One more thing. Go ahead.
One more thing. Is you have time for one more? Everybody's talking about he's saving us money. He's throwing out excess staffing and so that we're saving money. But he's spending money like a drunken sailor, and we need to let the maggots know that we know that.
Yeah. So that's where we have an opportunity. Every time someone says, well, he's saving us money because of this, ask the question, Naomi. This is what I'm asking everybody to do. When you hear that and you want to hold someone accountable in a moment, ask them, how is it being saved and what's being done with it? Put them on the spot and make them answer the question. Most of the people that you'll talk to probably won't have a really clear answer. They're just going off of the sound bites and a lot of the things that they're being fed by that thing called Fox Entertainment. So, Naomi, thanks for the call this morning. And thank you for being in the fight. And never worry, we're gonna continue to do what we do. Okay.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks, Naomi.
Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. Yeah, Naomi makes a good point. I mean, there's some things that are certainly right up against the line in terms of if they're legal or not. And without the courts, there are probably some things that they would have crossed the line with by now. This handling of the Obrega. Sorry about that situation. Lots of legal scholars are saying that's illegal. And much of what's happening with ICE is viewed by many legal scholars as illegal. And if it were completely legal, then there wouldn't be court cases surrounding how ICE is handling many of these situations and rounding people up in the manner in which they are doing it, particularly when it comes to not presenting themselves and their identification and their warrants. On Friday, Mayor Johnson will be with us, and we're going to talk a little bit about that because of what he signed into effect over the weekend with regard to ICE in Chicago and National Guard in Chicago. So we'll get into that. But I want to come back to a little bit with something that Naomi said before we go to this break. Taxes rather than tariffs. I agree with her on that, and I'm going to do my part. I'm adding that to my book of things. But let me give you guys just a couple of quick thoughts about money and economics. The annual cost for public broadcasting is about $545 million. The cost to end homelessness is about $9.6 billion. Did you guys realize that? National free school meals, $11 billion. The U.S. military budget, $849 billion. Think about that for a second. If we were to reduce our military budget and become more efficient with its use and just redirect some of those monies to those other programs, it would be barely a pinch in the bucket to make sure that those three programs are still in place. Public broadcasting, ending homelessness, and the National Free School Meal Program. How about that? Barely $21 billion could come right out of the military budget. And if we want to improve our national security, how about we take care of the information that goes out to all of us? How about if we take care of feeding our children? How about if we take care of our citizens who are homeless? There's one for you. All right, we'll take a quick break, guys. You are listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM in Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
This is your WCPT Progressive Calendar. Tuesday, September 16th at 5:30 p.m., the Chicago Council on Global Affairs will host a panel discussion called Retreat or Resilience, Responding to Global Democratic Decline. Panelists include Norman Eisen, Senior Fellow at the Brookings Institution, and Susan Stokes, Director of the Chicago Center on Democracy. Visit globalaffairs.org to learn more and register to attend. Tuesday, September 30th at 5 p.m., the Institute for Policy Research at Northwestern University welcomes Ali Zaidi for a distinguished public policy lecture. Zaidi headed the White House Climate Policy Office during the Biden administration and served as President Biden's top advisor on domestic climate policy. The event is free and takes place at White Auditorium, 2211 Campus Drive in Evanston.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Chew's Views with Richard Chew.
All right, guys. So going to the conversation about tariffs, but also we're going to call them taxes. Taxes on America. And as it relates to us doing a better job with our federal budget, just think about that for a second. Barely $22 billion. Taking that out of the U.S. military annual budget. How amazing what that would do for other folks. All right. Well, to that end, we have a couple clips that I want to kind of hit you guys with as it relates to tariffs and as it relates to the Fed. So, Devin, let's go to the Goldman Sachs economist tariff. We got that one, or clip. We got that one ready. Cool.
Look, we stand by the results of this study. I think it's very early to be drawing definitive conclusions about how tariff costs will be shared. But in principle, tariff costs can be borne by foreign exporters, by U.S. businesses, or by U.S. consumers. Now, we've had tariffs in place on that very first round from China for about 5-6 months, so I think we have learned a little something. Our conclusion is that U.S. businesses have borne most of the tariff costs so far because it takes time to negotiate lower import prices or to pass price increases along to consumers. But if the most recent tariffs, like the April tariff, follow the same pattern that we've seen with those earliest February tariffs, then eventually, by the fall, we estimate that consumers would bear about 2/3 of the cost, foreign exporters would bear about 1/4 of the cost, and U.S. businesses would absorb less than 10%. That probably sounds small, less than 10%, but bear in mind that is a net number. If you are a company importing or using goods to sell in the U.S., you're going to get hit harder. If you are a company producing in the U.S. who is now protected from foreign competition, you can raise your prices and benefit. So those are our estimates, and I think actually they're quite consistent with what many other economists have found.
So Donald Trump said that the economists were wrong, and this comes from a Goldman Sachs chief economist, talking about the fact that two entities are going to be impacted by tariffs, really harder hit once we get into the fall. Certain businesses, which it's already showing itself, and consumers. So going back to what Naomi wants us to do in terms of changing our language, it's a tax. He raised taxes on the American people. Full stop. And I like the way that she puts that, and I'm going to do my best to use that more often than tariffs. But there's a very clear example of what is going to happen. Kamala Harris said during the campaign last year, she said it during her acceptance speech at the DNC, and she said it post that on many occasions, that once we got into the fall, if Donald Trump were back in the White House, once we got into the latter part of the year, that the increase in cost would start to show itself. And that everyday Americans that he was promising he was going to, magically save were going to be impacted. As we got to the holiday season, we would see an increase in cost, and the cost of Christmas would be more expensive. So this economist essentially just said the same thing. Fancier words, but the same thing. And here we are. We're coming up on, the end of the calendar of summer in a couple of weeks, getting into fall. And then once we get closer to, the end of year holidays in terms of what I call Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, where we spend a lot of money. You're going to see we disproportionately spend, and I've seen it for years as an advisor, that the cost of the things that people spend the most amount of money on during a certain time of the year, from Halloween to New Year's, is exponentially higher. And the cost of those things is going to be more. The expense of those things is going to be. So when I say higher, let me rephrase that. There's more that's spent. There's more raw dollars that are spent. And the cost of doing that this year is going to be more expensive. She didn't try. She told the world that this was going to happen. Now, and now economists are chiming in as well. And here's another one. This clip is one that I think we got the profanity cleaned up in it, but it's one that I think you guys should hear. It's the dumb Trump. You know which one I'm talking about?
Let's talk about the Trump supporters that are losing their jobs. Last night I was out in Chicago and these 3 guys started talking to me and they were all from Naperville. And they asked what I did for work and I said, I make educational content. And the guy was like, are you one of those liberals? Are you one of those lefties? And he was so serious. He just continued to mock me and make fun of my content. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave this conversation. And he goes, yeah, it's because of you guys that my mom just lost her job. And I was intrigued. I was like, why did your mom lose her job? What did she do for work? And he goes, she was in the military. She's a veteran. But then she was working at this office for the last few years and they just let her go. I look him dead in the face. I'm like, do you think your mom was a DEI hire? Because veterans are a protected class. And now that they don't have to hire her anymore, then they let her go. He goes, that's so true. He doesn't believe me. He looks it up and just the color just drains from his face. And the guy with him was a research assistant after just graduating from university. And his position was just terminated because of lack of federal funding from the federal government, which is thanks to fucking Trump. So newsflash, DEI doesn't just mean black people. So in fact, what's happening on a federal level is going to affect you too. You aren't special just because you're white. Everyone's getting them. Okay, bye.
Kylie Brewer is her name. She does write and present a lot of educational content, just to give her props. But the point's there. They want to blame the Democrats or he wants to blame this guy that she said that she ran into along with his friend from one of the Chicago suburbs for all that's happening. And because of that, it definitely puts a burden on us to be accurate. And because of that burden, we all have to be willing to step up and speak the truth like that. I think that's critically important. We have to be willing to speak out at a moment's notice and know why things are happening. Why these tariffs/taxes are happening, why these cuts are actually happening. And so she was good in her way of handling it. This is not on the Democrats. I said this earlier. Just keep that in mind, guys. This is not in the lap of the Democrats. Yes, we have to fight. We have to make sure that we're ready to fight like Kylie did in this clip. But that this is not in the lap of the Democrats in any shape, form, or fashion. All right, one more clip before we hit this break. Talking about layoffs and tariffs, the John Deere.
Well. What a shocker. To catch you up, John Deere, literally an archetype and a symbol of the American agriculture and farming industry, they just announced that they are going to do mass layoffs because they just reported a $300 million quarterly loss because of the tariffs. But I thought that the countries who were sending us the products paid for the tariffs. Now, if this is shocking news to you, you might be sitting there being like, wait, I don't understand, because John Deere is an American company, and that means that they have to make all of their products in the United States, right? First off, John Deere actually produces a lot of their product in Mexico. Now, they do make some products in the United States, which is where they are doing a lot of their layoffs, but what they don't have is they don't have the materials, the parts, the machinery. They have to import all of that, because you see made in America, and what that actually means is assembled in America. And if you don't believe me, literally the director of investor relations came out and said, because of rising costs of steel and aluminum tariffs coming from Europe and India, we have to raise our prices. And then on the other end, which is the buyer of their product, which is mostly farmers, they are nervous about the tariffs, so they've stopped buying new equipment. But you guys think that consumer confidence is so high and optimistic. It's almost like we could have predicted that this was going to happen. It's almost like some of us last year and earlier this year and 2 weeks ago and 5 minutes ago knew how tariffs worked. We tried to explain it to you, and you refused to actually do research yourself. But no. You decided to trust a Truth Social post from President He's in the files, why won't he release them? Where he went on and on about the fact that the other countries pay the tariffs. The other countries don't pay the tariffs. And you might be watching this being like, wow, you're normally very calm. You seem very excited about this. Because this, out of all of the things that have been happening in this country, this is the simplest to understand, and it is the hardest to cram into 78 million American voters. Good job. This is the first of what is sure to be hundreds of companies doing this, impacting directly the companies that are in the states where you voted for this.
Yeah. I mean, how he said that 2 minutes ago, 2 weeks ago, earlier this year, or this time last year, it was put out there. And like he said, you'd rather believe a dude that's got these massive business failures. So I want to ask this question, and we'll hit this break. How many of those out there that you know that voted for this dude or did not vote at all have seen an significant increase, proportionate to an increase to your wealth and or income, proportionate to that which the Trump family has received and seen since he took office? That's a question, that we need to be asking. And maybe that's a question that Democratic voices, leaders, elected officials should be asking. Have you seen the same proportionate increase in your wealth and or income that the Trump family has since January 21st this year? I think it's a fair question. Appreciate you, Naomi. Taxes rather than tariffs. That's going to be our new way of positioning this. Let's take a quick break, guys. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we'll be right back.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. We're a different kind of wireless company dedicated to serving people 50 and up, like me. Because let's face it, our needs are different. Big wireless unlimited plans are designed for 20-somethings, not us. At Consumer Cellular, we're focused on one thing, bringing you affordable, reliable rate plans that suit your needs, not ours. How do we do that? We start by using the same towers as the big guys, the exact same towers. We then create rate plans designed for your usage. The fact is, we can offer you an unlimited plan with the same network quality for less because we understand how you use wireless services. Our plans start at just $20 a month. And forget trying to chat with robots. You'll get 100% US-based award-winning customer service when you need help. Come find out how wireless should be and join the millions who've made the switch.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto-pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
If you want thick, healthy, and gorgeous hair, then you need Hair Volume from New Nordic. Available online at Amazon and newnordicusa.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. The Trump administration has started requiring parents looking to reunite with their children who crossed into the U.S. alone to show up for interviews. This is according to a policy memo obtained by the Associated Press. Legal advocacy groups say this has led to the arrest of some parents while their children remain in U.S. custody. The Office of Refugee Resettlement says the goal is to ensure sponsors, who are usually a parent or guardian, are properly vetted. And AP correspondent Jennifer King reports on the approaching federal trial for the alleged golf course assassin accused of attempting to kill President Trump last year.
In Fort Pierce, Florida, trial preparations are underway for Ryan Ruth, the man charged with trying to assassinate President Trump on the golf course at Trump's West Palm Beach Country Club last year. Ruth has pleaded not guilty to charges of attempting to assassinate a major presidential candidate, assaulting a federal officer, and several firearm violations. He faces additional state charges. Judge Aileen Cannon signed off on Ruth's request to represent himself at a pretrial conference, but said that court-appointed attorneys need to remain as standby counsel. Prosecutors say Ruth plotted to kill Trump for weeks before he was spotted by a Secret Service agent aiming a rifle through the golf course shrubbery. The agent opened fire, Ruth dropped his weapon without firing and fled and was arrested not far away. In the early days of the war in Ukraine, he claims to have tried to volunteer to fight and recruit foreign soldiers, leaving messages that one Ukrainian military official described to CNN as delusional. Witnesses tell the Associated Press Ruth was a self-styled mercenary leader with plans to insert himself into conflicts around the world. I'm Jennifer King.
Chinese leader Xi Jinping welcomed Russian President Vladimir Putin as an old friend as the two held a series of meetings today. After the talks, China announced it would begin offering 30-day visa-free access to Russian travelers starting later this month. This comes a day after both attended the annual summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. This is AP News. AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports a landslide has obliterated a village in Sudan.
The landslide wiped out a village in Sudan's Darfur region, killing an estimated 1,000 people. A rebel group controlling the area reported the disaster late Monday. The tragedy occurred on Sunday in the Tarasin village in central Darfur's Mara Mountains after days of heavy rainfall. The Sudan Liberation Movement Army states that initial information indicates the death of all village residents, with only one survivor. A spokesman says the village was completely leveled and the group's appealing to the UN and international aid groups to help recover bodies. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
And a Taliban spokesman in Afghanistan says the death toll has surpassed 1,400 people after a 6.0 magnitude earthquake hit the eastern part of the country Sunday night. Rescue teams continue looking for survivors. An additional 3,000 are injured. I'm Marcela Sanchez.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Vuchitsky. We'll see sunny skies here for today with a high around 80 degrees, winds out of the south around 5 to 10 miles per hour, and for tonight mostly clear with a low near 60. By Wednesday, a chance for showers and thunderstorms here late, increasing cloud cover, high of 77 degrees. Thursday, mostly sunny, high of 66. Friday, a slight chance for rain, high of 66. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 61.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers. So we build specially adapted homes at Homes for Our Troops. And thanks to our donors and supporters, this life-changing gift of freedom is provided mortgage-free to these veterans. But we need you to join us, too, in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to the show. 773-763-9278 is the Credo mobile phone and text line. You can reach us here with your calls. You can also send us a text and most definitely send me an email at richard@WCPT820.com. About a month ago, there was an article that showed up in the Chicago Tribune that was written by author Seth David Radwell. And one of the producers here said, "Hey, Richard, let's look at talking with Sean and having him, Seth, and having him on the show And I said, yeah, let's get into it. The article is entitled "The Emerging Schism Within the Democratic Party." And you guys know I'm a staunch believer that I look at what I do, how do I make it better? And so I'm one that will be self-critical of anything that I'm a part of, and as a team player, what can we do to make it better? So I'm very, very understanding the importance of introspection and review. What I'm not good at doing or an advocate of is cutting off my own nose, cutting off slashing at my own team. So when I first saw the article, I was like, but then I read it and I was like, okay, there's some content here that I can lean into. And one of the comments that kind of highlights this article is: a political dialogue in America has collapsed. Raw and bitter emotions such as anger, anger and resentment have crowded out logical debate. As my father used to say, you can't debate with a fool. Now, the only reason analysis and historical perspective can act as salves or salves for the irrational political discourse that is raging presently. So, this morning we have with us the author of this really compelling book called American Schism, and that would be Seth David Radwell. Good morning, Seth, and welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning, Richard. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. We got a little muffling from your end of the call. I don't know if you.
Let's see. Is that any better?
It's a little bit better. So, as I say to everybody when we have a phone interview, find a safe spot and sit there and stay there.
I'm not moving, I promise.
All right, cool. Well, welcome to the show, man. I'm glad you're with us this morning. Congratulations on the book. I haven't read it in its entirety, but I have grabbed content from it and thoughtful parts of it and said, that's an interesting perspective, and it's an interesting way of looking at where we are. What you guys don't know is Seth is this new book that's been out, American Schism in 2025, and it's a bigger part of what he's been writing for a while on the topic of how we get along, go forward, have rational debate, have rational conversation about where we are when it comes to our political debate, when it comes to our political conversation. So, Seth, take a moment and kind of introduce yourself to our audience, let them know a little bit about you, and then we'll get into a little bit of the conversation that you have in this wonderfully written book.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, as I said. And, my background, Richard, is mostly as a business executive. I was CEO of many different businesses in the consumer product space for many, many years. I built my career that way. But I did leave my career about 5 years ago because of concern over the degree to which our democratic republic was in crisis. And the purpose of me leaving was to do an investigation about where this polarization, where this bitter political divide, where it came from. I was convinced it must have had roots in our history. And that's what American Schism is all about, is tracing the origin of our divisions today back to our founding. And that's the analysis that I've done and that I speak about today.
And it's when I think about those words, roots in our history, and I asked the question, and I went through this process myself in going through the book. I asked myself the question, okay, so if where we are today is rooted in history, there also has to be a point where we went in a direction and repeated going in that direction. So what are some of your, as I like to put it, what are some of your origin points that you think, or when I say points, Seth, I mean points in time where, to your point, roots in our history have had the most impact on where we are today?
Great. So that's kind of a fundamental question that I love to talk about, because the way I describe it in the book, Richard, is as a pendulum swing back and forth between these two very distinct ideals of what our nation was founded upon. And the best way to describe it for folks who know history is that the original schism, the original American schism during our founding, ended up becoming a war between the Hamiltonian side, Alexander Hamilton, and the Jeffersonian side. And that that split of how to think about government very much continued to persist over the course of our history. And today it's really rooted in this, what we have today is what I call this complete mistrust of, on one hand, the elites who design government, and on the other hand, the people who've not been served well by it. So it's this elitism versus popularism kind of battle. Now, the reason why history is so important is because it turns out that at different times in our history, we dealt with this in different ways, sometimes well and sometimes not well, like during the Civil War. And what you find in our history is that there is what I call a magic formula. There's a secret sauce for how to best move forward in the face of division. And my concern today, Richard, is that we have abandoned that sauce. We've left those ingredients behind. Today, in fact, is a dialogue that does not represent the majority of Americans. It caters to certain special interests, and that's because our political system is completely broken. So from there is how I work to try to figure out how to help solve it, how to move forward, and that's what I like to talk about and what I propose in my book.
So the secret sauce that's there, the salve that's there that's not being used, what are some of the components of that? If you were to say, here are the 2 or 3. I'm a list person. I'm a bullet point person. As best we can, let's make it plain initially to get people's interest up in a thing, and then we can get it more into some of the nuance. But what would you say are those 2 or 3 things? If you said, Richard, doggone it, if we could get here, or if we could start here, then we can start to make some progress. What would that be?
Good. So it's great. I'll give you 3 quick ones. So of those ingredients, probably the most important. The first one is when we're in a problem, when we face a problem, we need to approach it in what I call an empirical framework, meaning facts and data matter. If we let emotions trump the data, what we're learning from our both empirical mind observing and what we see and rationalize, if we let emotions get out of hand, we won't come up with good solutions. So the first one is empirical framework for problem solving. Okay, the second one is what I call deep empathetic listening. What does that mean? It doesn't mean listening to other points of view on Twitter. It's more like what you do on your show. It's about really trying to understand in an empathetic way points of view that are different from yours, the way we used to do when I was a kid in debate club in high school, where we'd have to create a logical argument supporting an argument, a point of view, and then maybe the next week do the same exercise with the opposing point of view. So deep empathetic listening, really understanding deeply other points of view in terms of their logical sources and what's driving them. That's the second one. And I'll just to make it quick, the third one is in any problem-solving environment, we have to go into the room knowing that we're going to have to compromise, that we can't let perfection be the enemy of the good, that in any democratic republic that works, there's inevitably compromise. And today, all those 3 things, and I can point out why, are completely missing from the debate.
Yeah, they are. And I think that people that are listening would probably say, yes, they are. And then there's a reason that they are. And I know in my brain, I go down that path. And in full transparency, I go, okay, so this, I'm learning just in this short conversation that you and I think about problem solving in kind of a similar way. And that is, and I drive folks in my life, friends, family, loved ones, and all the rest, business associates, etc. Crazy because I keep going to go. Okay, so where did that start though? How did you get that? Because I want to. My brain says if I can get to the origin of something, then I can actually use data, facts, build a framework, so that I can solve the problem or certainly try not to repeat it again. Where did this all start? So, that's where I see these 3 are very compelling and probably right on point. I think what's challenging, though, is that a lot of people are unwilling to start, and I go in reverse order. they certainly are unwilling to compromise because everybody believes. What went through my mind, Seth, when you were describing that, God's honest truth, what went through my mind is maybe we should have fewer channels of communication and outlets for people, because what is happening is folks are just yelling at each other. And I think about, and I'm gonna throw somebody under the bus, and this guy Charlie Kirk, when he goes on these little sort of cross-table debates with people, it's all about him being right about everything and dissing and trash talking whoever. And I know the format is set up that way for that purpose. But a lot of the conversation that we have is just, to your point, folks just yelling at each other without any concept of, okay, where's this yelling going to take us? Is it going to solve a problem? Or are we just going to walk away and still be prepared to come back and yell some more?
That's right. You're absolutely right. And so why is it that this framework of listening and rational debate, why has it been so crowded out in recent decades? And I think it has been. Well, one of the reasons is that both elected officials and the system we have to elect them, as well as to a large degree a lot of the social media landscape, are motivated not by rational talk, but by emotional triggers. So let me be specific. Elected officials figured out quite a while ago that the best way to mobilize voters, their base, quote unquote, is by pushing buttons that get them fearful or angry, as opposed to a rational kitchen table argument. That's what mobilizes voters, and it's what raises money to a large degree. Now, the same issue is plaguing much of media. So the business model for most of media, and I think shows like yours are the exception, which is why it was a pleasure for me to come on today. But most media, remember, it has a business model that's based on sensationalism, based on getting clicks or eyeballs, which are attracted to sensational things, rage, anger, outrageousness, and that's what makes money. That's the only business model we have in most of social media and much of media. Mm-hmm. So if both political officials and media are not interested in pursuing truth, then we have a major problem. Now, I'm not saying we haven't had sensationalism before, or this is the first time that we've had this problem, but it's gotten to an extreme. Mm-hmm. And what I would ask your listeners to think about is, one of the things I love to do based on my analysis and research is to take a long view, look historically. So we've had this framework for 250 years, which is sometimes it's from the Enlightenment. It's from the 18th century set of thinkers who thought differently about how to structure society. They came up with the idea of the social contract. Now, since that time, let's say 250 years ago, and the combination of the Enlightenment framework as well as the scientific revolution, we've made more prosperity in human prosperity has advanced more in those 250 years than in the prior 2,000. So, for example, 250 years ago, life expectancy across the planet was around 35 years. Now it's over 70 everywhere. 250 years ago, 4/5 of the world the global world were in terrible poverty. Today, about 1/5 of the world is in that level of poverty. My point being is this framework that I just laid out, of these three ingredients, have helped us solve incredible problems. Not that we don't have ones today. We certainly do. But if we're going to attack them, if we're going to face them, we have to use what is a proven formula to move forward. And that's what I'm suggesting, that the things I mentioned are part of a proven formula that has achieved results. And I feel like today too many people are willing to throw that away and have their own facts and their own truth. And that's not going to work. That's why we have a formula that we've been relying on. Anyway, I'll stop there. But does that make sense to you?
It makes complete sense. Without a doubt, it makes sense, Seth. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We're talking to author and pretty smart dude, Seth David Radwell, about a couple of things, but the book that he's written is called American Schism, and referencing some things that he feels we've kind of lost our way from, and that's a form a way in which we can resolve issues, resolve problems by thinking about this less from who's going to shout the loudest and from a current technology standpoint and less from a who's going to get the most clicks and more from and as I saw it in my quick interpretation of what you were saying, Seth, is where is this going and how are we going to be able to have some solutions that benefit everyone? I would say right now, and part of I think the big challenge that everybody seems to have not challenge, the bucket that a lot of people have fallen into is in terms of us versus them, and I think all of us are susceptible to it. None of us are completely immune from it. Is that a lot of people won't allow themselves to get comfortable with a rising tide does lift all ships. And it is not a zero-sum game if me and Seth decide that we're going to help folk, that we're not going to lose out on anything. In fact, we're probably going to gain some of that deep empathetic, not just listening, but just deep empathetic compassion about us all going forward. If we can take away the feeling that if I help these folks, if Seth and I decide to help these folks out over here, we're not going to lose anything. We're actually going to gain, and they're going to gain, and then can we repeat that? We've gotten so far away from that, and I don't know if I'm crazy or living in a crazy mindset, but I think that is at the core of a lot of where we are today.
Right. And history, again, is really interesting. One period that's specifically relevant to today is the period from the 1890s through the progressive era. So in the 1880s and 90s, we were in what was called the Gilded Age. And the Gilded Age was when big power, oil, banks, railroads, the trusts were increasingly getting super wealthy, and farmers specifically, but Americans in general were really struggling. And there was at that time a populist movement called the Farmers Alliance that started to try to advocate on behalf of the little guy against the big interests. And the interesting part of the story, Richard, is that it did lead to change, but it took like 20 years until Teddy Roosevelt's progressive era when there was a realization that the Gilded Age needed to be checked, that we couldn't allow these special interests that were so powerful to so hurt the common American. And that, they could be wealthy for creating banks and railroads and oil, but there needed to be checks on those powers. And that led to an era called the progressive era. My point being is that these waves of change take time. And my biggest concern is that the system we've had for 40 years, sometimes people call it globalization, or in the technical term is neoliberalism. It's done well for many people who are connected to this new global economy, but it's hurt hundreds of millions of Americans. It hasn't solved their problems. And the question is, are we going to face up to it and move forward in a way that's, to use the term progressive, that has new solutions? And I think if we're going to do so, we need to use those tools that I mentioned.
So who has the most, this is a political question by design so that we can kind of add some substance to what you just said. So who has the most, have their hands best on the steering wheel to get us in that direction? Because I don't see, and I will answer part of my question myself, I don't see the, quote, Republican Party, the GOP, as it is right now, being anywhere close to a fix for all. I see them more aligned with what you just said, which is sort of that new right, the new tech right that wants it to be a situation where there is more authoritarianism, oligarchy, technocracy, or whatever the word is that they're using. I don't see that that's coming from the right, but the question is that it does the Democratic mindset or voice or party or the progressive party have their thumb on the scale to make the change. And this is where that pendulum, I don't know if it's swinging back and forth very far, but it seems like that oscillation right now isn't fixing anything, if that makes any sense.
That's right. It makes sense. I mean, first of all, the backdrop we have to remember is that the point you're making is actually not only the U.S. In the entire world. There's a tendency, a trend towards authoritarianism, away from democracy. So that's happening everywhere. The model of Xi or Putin or Erdogan in Turkey. So it's not only in the U.S. this is happening. It's really what led to Brexit in many ways. It's this very right movement that's about. I hate to say it this way, but it's also about a strongman leader consolidating power and controlling the narrative. And that's happening everywhere. So the question he raises, I think, and here's where we may differ a bit, I think both parties are to blame. I will say I do believe you that the current Republican Party that's moved away from pragmatism and problems and it's all about emotions is much worse, I think, than it ever has been. But I think both, and when I say both parties, what I lay out in the book is a two-pronged approach. And what I mean by that is, if we're going to move forward, there are structural elements of our system that are completely broken. And I'll give you one example. So we need structural change. And on the other side, we need mindset change about how we talk to each other. But let me give you one piece of data for your listeners on the structural side. In the 2022, which is the last recent cycle, congressional cycle that's been analyzed, if I asked you, Richard, what portion of the electorate was responsible for 400 of the 435 House seats, so about 80%. What portion of the electorate picked those 400 representatives? What would you say? What would you guess?
Less than 20, probably 22%.
Okay, that's most people say around that 2022. The answer, if you do the analysis, and this has been done, the answer is 8%.
Okay.
8.
Wow.
And here's why it's 8. Those 400 seats are gerrymandered. Mm-hmm. So they're completely safely either Republican or Democrat, which is a very topical issue today. Now, because of that, because they're gerrymandered, when Election Day is not in November, Election Day is the date of the relevant primary.
Right.
Okay, which is June or whatever it is. Now, many states have closed primaries. So let's say if we're in Kentucky, and we're in Kentucky 8, a district, a third of Kentucky voters are independents. They can't vote at all. Neither can Democrats. That's a Republican safe seat. So the only people who can vote in the primary that matters are Republicans. And about 8% show up. So this is the point, is that we're allowing our structural system is so bad, and Democrats are guilty too. The two-party system is accountable for this, is that we're allowing 8% of the electorate to pick the direction of the country. Now, does that make sense? Is that representing the majority or multiple interests? This is what's happened to our system. So I think, we have some basic structural reforms. By the way, these are things I work on, things like open primaries, ranked choice voting, term limits, which I'm a big believer in, nonpartisan redistricting. I mean, there are all these changes that unless we embrace them, we're allowing a broken system to function.
Well, and so I'm going to say this real quickly. Seth, we definitely have to have you back and talk more about this. And so just put that on your calendar, put that on your whiteboard. I'm going to be back on Choose View so we can talk more in depth about this. Because one of the things that popped into my brain when you said this, we talk about authoritarianism and a move toward the strong man ideology. What happens is when you continue to limit the field of who can vote, you by default, you create that authoritarianism. You create a singular mindset and voting block because if you keep limiting in the structure of our voting systems, i.e. closed primaries, then it's inevitable that you're going to have a narrow field. Quick example, then we're going to have to wrap up. I had Amy McGrath on last week and a couple weeks ago who ran in Kentucky against Mitch McConnell. Right there. It's hard as hell to win down there, not because she wasn't the better candidate, but because of what you just said about how the primary systems work and the lower percentage of voters when it comes to the general in that state. So it is by design, and I've had a number of people that get on me about, Richard, you need to talk more about the Electoral College. Well, I broaden it and say we need to talk more about voting's structure in the United States
in general.
in general.
Right.
So, man, Seth,
absolutely.
Listen,
I'd love to come back because I love talking about this, and I've listened to your show recently. I love the quality of the dialogue. So please let me know. Let me know when, and we can go into specific areas if that's interesting to you.
It would be fantastic for me, and I know my listeners would be really appreciative of it all over the country. Seth, let folks know how they can find you before we wrap up today.
Sure. Well, the book is called American Schism, and it's available on Amazon or wherever books are sold. And Seth David Radwell is my website, and I have a Substack, and I write a column usually once a month. The piece that was in Chicago Tribune you mentioned. So they can find me at SethDavidRadwell.com.
Seth David Radwell, thank you for being with us this morning on Choose Views. We really appreciate you taking the time out, and we will get something set up again so we can talk in more depth. Does that sound good?
So it sounds terrific. I appreciate it so much, Richard. Thank you.
All right, man. Have a great day and stay safe. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we'll be right back.
When it comes to banking, you need a bank you can trust. A bank with a rock-solid reputation and the highest integrity. A bank that gives you the attention and respect you deserve.
ABOC first opened its doors in downtown Chicago in 1922, and we've made our name on deep expertise, best-in-class service, and a strong commitment to our customers. We know the Chicago business market inside and out and can help you craft the perfect banking solution, no matter what type of business you're in.
And if you're looking for a banking partner for your labor union, we can bring the type of expertise that only comes from a bank that was founded by labor unions and still has union employees and shareholders to this day.
Whether you need a deposit account, loan, trust services, or investment management, ABOC has you covered. Let's work together to manage your finances today while planning for a better tomorrow. ABOC, a bank built on a strong foundation.
Visit ABOC.com to learn more. Member FDIC.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you get coverage options based on how much you want to pay for car insurance. And then you decide how to spend the rest of your money, because you're in charge. Today, you're going to pay down your credit card bill. But you decide when you'll pay it. Before the due date, so those interest charges don't get you. But you decide if you pay it in full. But you definitely should, because again, interest charges. With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, we'll help you find coverage at a fair price. And then you're in charge. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Not available in all states. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
At Straight Talk, we get it. You say no a lot.
Mom, can I get a tarantula? No. Coffee?
No. So we're giving you more reasons to say yes, like a free 5G phone with real unlimited data with select plan activation.
Can I use the free phone? Yes.
See? Doesn't it feel good to say yes to more?
Absolutely. Face tattoo? Absolutely not.
Available at straighttalk.com and Walmart. Taxes and fees apply. In-store activation of Gold Unlimited plan or higher required. For network management practices, visit straighttalk.com.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Vuchitsky. We'll see sunny skies here for today with a high around 80 degrees, winds out of the south around 5 to 10 miles per hour, and for tonight mostly clear with a low near 60. By Wednesday, a chance for showers and thunderstorms here late, increasing cloud cover, high of 77 degrees. Thursday, mostly sunny, high of 66. Friday, a slight chance for rain, high of 66. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 61.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu.
Hi guys, welcome back to Choose Views. We excuse me, both Devin had to sneeze and I had to clear my throat, so we couldn't come on right at the same time. Check this out.
Crime is rising in the state of Oklahoma, and I believe that is highly correlated to the fact that Oklahoma has the worst schools in the country, and no leader in Oklahoma or on the federal level is interested in dealing with that. And my problem with this entire debate relative to the national mood, not the one that you and I are having, is that it's become so highly politicized by the White House that we're not having real discussions on how we're going to deal with crime in American cities, big and small, red or blue. We're just arguing over whether or not we should be bringing tanks and armed military soldiers into cities that don't want them.
That would be our good friend Mike Nellis. Once again, I like how somebody. Hey, Mike. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Morning, buddy.
I'd like to give you your props on things that you say, and you and I both lean in this direction oftentimes. But I love how when you've posted things on social media, it triggers, and that's a word that's used a lot. It triggers so many different people. But yeah, that is the conversation point. Let's talk about if tanks should be in cities versus what all folks want to do in terms of those that are elected officials and the rest of us, and that's reduce crime anywhere on any location. I said a number of times last week, just because I don't want to see tanks in the street in Chicago doesn't mean that I want to see that reallocation of effort and resources go to a red city in a red state just out of retribution. I don't want to see them in any city. I want to see the local law enforcement, the state or county law enforcement have more resources to help in solving those problems rather than having tanks in any. I don't want them in Little Rock, Arkansas any more than I want them in the city of Chicago. And you were right on point in articulating that's the conversation. It's solving the crime, solving the issue of crime, not bringing in tanks. And I really applaud you for how you navigated that one.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. The thing about this that just drives me crazy is bringing in the National Guard is an emergency measure. It happens in extraordinary circumstances when governors, local officials in cities and states ask for it, right? Prior to Donald Trump sending in the National Guard to L.A. a few months ago, it hadn't happened without the governor's request since desegregation in the 60s. That's how long it had been since a president decided to use their power this way, excuse me. And what's so maddening about it is that crime is an issue in Chicago. I'm not going to pretend like it's not. I think any elected official who pretends like it isn't is making a wild mistake in that. It's gotten better over the last couple of years. Some of that is a decline from COVID. Some of that is some of the efforts that have been made here. But it's still an issue. And we should be leaning into the conversation and talking about the right way to handle this problem instead of running away from it or trying to tell people that they should feel safe when they don't, which I think is a mistake that Democratic politicians make on crime, but they also make it on the economy, is to tell people they're doing well when they aren't. And we should be going, all right, if sending tanks to Chicago isn't the issue, if sending tanks to Oklahoma, which has rising crime, isn't the issue or isn't the solution, what's the right way to handle it? I think you can have a conversation about community policing. You can have a conversation about education, which I think is central to this issue. You can have a conversation about economic security and making sure that people don't feel like they have to turn to crime in order to do this, because crime is often, turning to crime is often something that happens because people are desperate. We can talk about guns. We can talk about legislative solutions. We can talk about a lot of different things. But the answer is, of course, Donald Trump could guard into Chicago and probably eliminate a good chunk of crime right away, but they're only going to be able to be here for 30 days. It's not a sustainable solution. So all the bragging they're doing in Washington, D.C. is ridiculous because, of course you can militarize a city and do it that way, but it comes at the expense of people's freedoms. It comes at the expense of a lot of dollars federally, and it comes at the expense of not investing in local sustainable solutions that keep cities safe.
Well, so a couple things. I'm pushing back, but I'm pushing back for information purposes. People don't feel safe. And let's ask how we got there. That's part of the conversation that's missed all the time. And Republicans like to push that dialogue. Sometimes Democrats forget to grab it quickly and say, but you don't have a solution for it. Bringing federal troops to any major city, whether it be Chicago, Boston, Little Rock, Arkansas, whatever, is not a solution. It's going to heighten the problem. And the problem is the perception of law enforcement in the city, in the neighborhoods that law enforcement is going to be placed in. Chicago's problem is a redistribution or maybe a reallocation of resources to affect the problem now that we have some economic disparity in the city of Chicago. That's at its core, economic disparity is a starting point. And a good example is let's go to the Ozarks. There's economic disparity there. Right. And in Appalachia. In our Appalachia. What's been the resulting thing that's happened? Crime. So It's not. It's not. It's to your point that you made on that call. Crime is the issue, but let's fix it. But let's get to the core of it. Like I was talking to our previous guest about, the core of things is where we get the real substantive answers to then fix the problem. And we've misallocated resources all over the map when it comes to better economic conditions for people. At the same time, we don't want to see anybody out doing stupid stuff that's going to lead them to having to deal with the legal of the incarceration system. I also want to comment on something else that you said about the this use of force in cities, and then the misuse of the resources. You saw this, Mike. I think you did. I don't want to assume you did. That Trump only has 30 days. Well, did you see how he's going about negating the compensation that would come at 29 days? And you're probably familiar with how the troops that are being deployed are missing out on compensation because of the fact that he only has the 30 days that they can actually be deployed. And so now this is becoming another issue of people that are supposedly being helped in a situation are actually getting screwed.
I haven't seen that. Can you give me a little bit more clarity on it? I'm sorry.
It has to do with the compensation for troops that are deployed under 30 days, and that their benefits. They
get paid less if he cuts it off at 29 days.
Yeah, they get paid less if he cuts it off at 29 days.
Well, that's messed up,
isn't it? Once again, so go ahead.
That's classic Trump too, because he never pays his bills. He hires contractors and he just doesn't pay them, and then their businesses go under. So of course he's going to do this to National Guard troops. Like the nicest thing I can say on the radio without cursing, Richard, would be this is what I've come to say when I'm on a show like yours, is a man of profoundly low moral character. It's the nicest thing I can say.
There you go. So a little bit of a pivot, but you are someone I didn't know you were a Notre Dame fan, and before you respond, I have to say this weekend I've had two surprises this weekend when it comes to Notre Dame. One of my longest lifetime friends, I did not know that he was a Notre Dame fan. He literally pushed me out of the way. He said, "Listen, we got to turn the Notre Dame game." I went to visit a friend of mine that turned 70 out in Los Angeles. And I didn't know he was such a Notre Dame fan. The guy grew up in rural North Carolina, blah, 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 served in the Marine Corps, great guy. And we were sitting there, and all of a sudden he says, "Oh, yeah, we got to turn on the Notre Dame game." I'm like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, Rich, I've been a Notre Dame fan since I was a teenager." I never knew that, Mike. And it blew. I stood there and looked at him like, wow, the things that you don't know about some of the people that are the closest to you that you love. And then I open up my social media feed and I click on Mike Nellis, and I'm like, what? But things turned out well for both you, for my friend Phil, and for you this weekend. And I like how you positioned that a few hours of escapism is a form of resistance. So you're happy to see that college football is back, as are so many millions of others. And I couldn't let you off the hook on that one, because I know you had things turned out favorably for you as a Notre Dame fan this weekend.
Well, unfortunately, they lost. So
yeah, well, it's still, but you had that moment where how do I want to put this? They were playing poorly. Let's put it that way, and I'll let you take it from there.
I mean, for those that didn't watch the game, they played pretty awful for about 3 quarters, and then for whatever reason in the 4th quarter, they became Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, and came back down by they were down probably 14 and came back, and they tied the game with like 4 minutes to go, and they lost because Miami kicked a field goal at the end. But to your point, I wrote a piece on my Substack, endlessurgency.com, for anybody who wants to read it, just about how escapism is such a powerful form of resistance when done right, because what Trump and these fascists want all of us to do is spend all our time doom scrolling, to become hopeless, to not engage with our family and our friends and our community, and just kind of give up so that they can do whatever they want. And I think having those couple of things in your life, whatever they will be, one of mine is college football, and I took my son to the game and my dad this weekend. And having a few hours where you're not on your phone, you're not thinking about what dumb thing Donald Trump is doing, you're not thinking about how he's hurting you, your family, or your friends, and you can just enjoy something in community with others, I think is so powerful. And I wanted to write that because it was how I was feeling. I was both feeling at the time a little bit guilty about all the work I had to do, and then also, jetting off to Miami for a day or two with my son, but then also realizing, hey, this actually fills my well. This makes me a better advocate, a better fighter when I'm back at work on Tuesday, although I'm struggling to get started today, Richard.
Well,
and it is.
Go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I wanted to make sure that other people knew it's okay to go enjoy the things that you like, whatever it is. Love Island, going on walks, kayaking. We've talked about that on the show before. Whatever it is for people, like go out and do it, because that is a form of resistance.
The thing that was compelling for me about it, yes, my friend, he was my friend Phil was like, that was a surprise to me. My whole point of this, I didn't know, and I didn't know that about you. They didn't win, but they played well. And I love the word you use, escapism. Escapism is not a negative word, y'all. Escapism is a word that we have to embrace because, particularly right now, to Mike's point, we are going through hell right now. And sometimes when you can reposition yourself, and I've said this so many times. In fact, I said it last Friday as we wrapped up the show. Find something to do that gives you a sense of balance, that helps you get recentered because of all the craziness that we are all dealing with and that we all absorb in different ways. And so that was really the thing that for me was the enlightening moment, was seeing what you posted and talking about escapism being a form of resistance. The other part that's interesting, and I think you've commented on this on a number of occasions, is it's also important for people to be informed properly, to get information from sources that they can vet and that they can trust. And sometimes that requires putting a little bit of work in, but the other side of that is then you aren't susceptible, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, Mike, you aren't as susceptible to the garbage that is out there that doesn't let you actually escape.
I think the hardest part about our media environment today is you don't have a couple of really central trusted news sources anymore because our institutions have so consistently let us down, from the media to government to political parties, et cetera. And so everything is so scattered and fragmented. And then on top of that, you have social media algorithms that are basically creating our own little safe spaces for us, whether we want them to or not. And it's really hard. And like I've built up endless urgency to the point where, we get hundreds of thousands of views on Substack, which is amazing. And I'm sometimes uncomfortable with like people being like, hey, Mike, I get my news from you. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm a Democratic strategist. I'm not Walter Cronkite. Like, what are you doing? And, I'm here to help you make sense of what happened that day. And so it's tough because I now feel that responsibility, but I explicitly tell people I'm not a journalist. Like, I'm not coming on to tell you the 5 things that happened that day. I'm coming on here to argue about politics. And it's just a little bit different. But all of that has become so blurred. And so you have some people who trust Jake Tapper, and you have some people that trust, Sean Hannity, and you have some people who trust so-and-so. And then those personalities kind of guide you in that direction. So it's hard. I mean, I'll be honest with you, like, even I struggle with my media diet now. How do I get my news? How do I get it in a timely enough way without having it, a wash over it? Twitter used to be a big way that I do that, but what Musk has done to the site has made it functionally useless to me on a news perspective. I get more, crazy right-wing stuff in it that just blows my mind that people even say out loud. And I don't quite know what to do. I mean, I'll tell you, like, honestly, my favorite news source that I get is Morning Brew, which is like a newsletter started by a couple of business guys from the University of Michigan. But they do a pretty good job of cutting it right down the middle on like the 10 biggest stories of the day, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with you in that. I find myself in that same space sometimes asking, when people have said to me versions of what you said about coming to this show to get X, Y, and Z, I'm very cautious about, being the last voice in that. And I'm also, but it does push me, and I know you probably feel the same way. I can say this pretty confidently. You feel obligated to make sure that what you say, what you do present is based on fact, based on reality, or at least based on a couple of resources that you've used to validate the point that you're making. And that's one of the reasons that I enjoy following you and then pausing and listening to what you're saying, because I know that you've taken the time to do your best to not have it always be just the hyperbolic items, but the ones that really are going to matter and impact people's lives. We're talking with Mike Nellis, and you're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. So, Mike, let's take a couple minutes as we wrap up. I want to ask you this question since we were talking about media. Right now, there's a big conversation going on about the quote unquote tech bros, the technocrats, and what they're doing and shaping how we connect and how we interact with each other. What are some of your observations? I know you could talk about this for hours on how the impact of technology when it comes to our personal connections, our personal interactions with folks. What is your sort of 2-minute drill in that space?
Yeah, well, I could absolutely talk about this all day. I think a lot about how vital friction is to being a full citizen in our society, and how so much of what the tech bros are doing is removing friction out of our lives. And at this point, with all the technology that's been built, you would never have to leave the house if you didn't want to. And those small little human interactions are so important. And I'll just give you like 2 proof points that I think about this. Is like, one, the guy who invented the ATM machine invented the ATM machine because he hated small talk when he would stand in line at the bank. And so now he eliminated, and I'm not saying it was the wrong thing to do, it's just like he eliminated a small touch point for people to go out and have a conversation with a real human being by to do that. And now that's happened a million times over on 100 different things that are pain points in human civilization. So that leads me to then something that Mark Zuckerberg said a few months ago, as he was on some podcast and he was talking about how, and the way he talked about it, this haunted me, but he was like, the average person has, and I'm going to get these numbers wrong, but he's like, the average person has 3 friends, but their demand for friends is 11. They could have 11 friends, but they only have 3 and they want more. So we're going to build AI companions that are going to be their friends for them through meta platforms. And I'm like, no, you should be trying to foster and create in-person, real-life connections with people, because we've never been more connected because of the internet, but we've never been more isolated because of the internet. And the connection that we have online is not real. It's not meaningful in the same way. And there's a lot of scientific studies that go into it. It doesn't give you the same emotional well-being and connection and dopamine hits, et cetera, that being in community with somebody else in person does. And we're moving in the wrong direction. So I think the problem is that society is being shaped by people who just don't understand the value of human connection, and it's leading to and feeding the epidemic of loneliness and isolation and depression that we're seeing. It's feeding suicidal ideation and drug abuse. It's feeding, I think, the divisiveness of our politics, too, because now it's very hard to imagine yourself having a conversation with somebody who you profoundly disagree with on many different issues, and so we're so far apart, and it makes us hate each other. And I think it's an unintended consequence of what they're doing, but they don't seem particularly interested in solving it.
When you spoke about what Zuckerberg said, it reminded me of a song that came out before you were born, but it's from a group that you know, and it's Steely Dan and Donald Fagen. There's a line in the song, IGY, What a Beautiful World This Will Be, that goes something like this: just a machine to make big decisions, programmed by fellows with compassion and vision. We'll be clean when the work is done. We'll be eternally free and eternally young. And what comes to mind with that I remember when I first heard it, I was in my 20s. And now fast forward to what Zuckerberg just said. Yeah, I mean, to be desirous of 11 but only have 3. And the simple solution is to walk out of the house and go meet people. But we're creating things that are actually going to force you to not walk out of the house and actually be afraid to walk out of the house. What an interesting paradox. Wow.
Can I go one layer deeper?
Please do.
On this too? Because the other challenge that we're having is because of the economic inequality that we have in our society today, being able to have in-person connection is such an easier thing to do when you have money. And so it's now become something where it's a divide between a 2-class structure of people who have sort of, quote unquote, made it and are able to financially support it. And just to give you an example, like, I'm an entrepreneur here in the city of Chicago. I have a bunch of different businesses that I do. One of the things that I have is I'm a member of Entrepreneurs Organization in Chicago. And because of that, I have a monthly forum that I meet with where we talk about our personal and our professional lives. I have events that I get to go to that are planned for, the whole of the group that I get to attend. And that's something that I'm able to do because I can afford to pay the entry fee every year to get in. into the organization, and it's harder for people to do that. So you hear people go, why don't you join a pickleball league? Well, I don't have money to join a pickleball league. I don't have money for X, Y, and Z, and that becomes harder. And then on top of all of that, when we talked about distrust in institutions, like a lot of people are distrustful of, organized religion, and so they're not going to church anymore. Like, I'm a practicing Catholic. I draw a lot of my community from being able to go to my parish down the street, and that is valuable and useful to me. So it's just harder and harder for people unless they are somebody who is of faith like I am, or they have money to be able to afford it, to be able to go do those things. They end up staying trapped in their house. Or if you're a young man right now, and this is a huge problem amongst young men, they're staying in their basements playing video games all day, which I like to do that sometimes too, but that isn't real connection either. So it's just this sort of like cutoff where you have very limited options, and our governments are not investing in giving people spaces. Like, I spend a ton of time at Diversity Driving Range hitting golf balls off the lake, and that is a service that the city provides to me. It's $9 for a bucket of 100 balls, which God bless them for that pricing. Yep. And we should have more stuff like that. Well, where's the city-run pickleball league that I want?
Well, and that gets back into this takeaway. And this is where I can compliment a lot of the Democratic leaders on a mayoral level, state and federal level, but particularly on a state level. Getting back to reinvesting dollars into community programs is one of the fastest, most efficient. And actually, when I say efficient, I don't just mean money, but in terms of time, ways to fix some of those other side of the issue problems, which could lead to crime. So that is a responsibility that does have to be taken up. I know we got to wrap up, Mike, but when you said earlier about the affordability of things, one of the things that I don't want to let slip by, and I know you're a believer in this, if you can't afford to be a part of a different entity or program, this is why I'm a big advocate of trying to, as best you can, be involved on a volunteer level for the purpose, if nothing else. The self gratification part is one thing. The help to those who need is another. But there are a lot of things that I want to encourage people to do, and that's why I do this on the show, is to get involved, is to follow people who you can trust and listen to voices like Mike's and others who want to encourage people to be involved in the process and not be that one that's got 3 friends in search of 11, if not more. So get involved. I mean, Mike has been a big advocate of that. Don't stay stuck in your own, little universe. Get involved in things that may not cost you anything other than the time that you have to invest in those things. Mike, how can folks find you one more time before we wrap up this Tuesday morning?
Yeah, you can find me on all social media platforms, Mike Nellis, Nellis. A couple of them have an underscore in between the first name and the last name. And then you can find my Substack at endlessurgency.com. Thank you, Richard. Thanks, Mike. Have a great day. And now hopefully you're off to a good start to your week, man. We'll talk soon. Talk soon. All right. Bye. Bye-bye. All right, guys, there you go. We wrap up our show today with, once again, that little bit of a race to the finish line, as we oftentimes do. But appreciate everybody being with us this morning. Thanks for Mike Nellis hanging out for a little bit. And thanks to Seth Radwell for being with us earlier in the show. Wrapping up today, September 2nd, 2025. Progressives, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hellacious One, coming to you from the file room of the basement of WCPT 820 in Chicago. Checking the file on the Sports Cubicle. The hosts, systems analyst Mike Mercado, project manager Devin Tingle, the marvelous one, Dan Marver in accounting, and me, well, it doesn't matter what I do. You can check us out, the Sports Cubicle, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Central on WCPT 820 Chicago. Gotta go, Sports Cubicle, 9 p.m. Sundays, WCPT.
Fall is here and colder nights are on the way. Is your home ready to stay warm and energy efficient? Green Attic is Chicagoland's